Today on Locked On Red Wings, is Lucas Raymond's contract negotiations close or not?
You're Locked On Red Wings, your daily podcast on the Detroit Red Wings. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back to the Locked On Red Wings podcast. We are your hosts, Brian Fisher and Scotty Bentley. Scotty's also the host over at Locked On Tigers and a freelance journalist for the Detroit News. And on today's episode, guys, we got a couple dueling reports out on Thursday about the Lucas Raymond contract situation. One from Ice Hockey Gifts, translating an article in Swedish newspapers from his agent talking about how the negotiations aren't close. They're still pretty far apart. And then a different one from Dave Pagnotta saying that they're getting closer. Like they're eyeing a long-term deal. So they're not like completely opposite of one another, but we got two more deals or two more, little blurbs, little updates on that contract situation with Lucas Raymond, and still nothing about Moritz Seider, really. So we'll talk about that here in segment one. Segment two, we'll talk about the roster for the Prospect Games, no longer the Prospect Tournament, because only Dallas is coming to Traverse City. The Prospect Games slated for next weekend. Just break down guys we're excited for and whatnot, and then we'll finish it off with a how do you feel about it Friday if there's time. But I have a feeling that there'll be time today. So before we can get into any of that, got to thank you guys for making Locked On Red Wings your first listen every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and, of course, on YouTube. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Also got to tell you guys that today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Scotty, first of all, happy Friday, and a little preemptively, happy Lions Sunday, because this is the final episode of the week.
Yeah, I'm pumped, man. Pumped for already went on FanDuel today. Pretty pumped for this Thursday night game that hasn't happened yet in our reality. But then we got the Brazil game on Friday. Full slate of college football Friday, Saturday, NFL Sunday, Tigers all weekend. We're living large here.
Absolutely. And Lucas Raymond hopes to be living large here in the next couple of weeks as well.
That was a pro transition right there. It really was. Look at you. You're smiling. You know it, too. You're like, yeah, I crushed that, I think. Yeah.
Every once in a while.
You did. That was
he's still vying for a brand new contract, and a couple dueling reports came out this afternoon on Thursday. The one was from Ice Hockey Gifts and had translated an article from Expressen.se, a Swedish publication, and it is minor update on Lucas Raymond's contract talks. Just to read it for you guys. Hope is high to find a solution, but as of today, there's no offer that's equal. Lucas wants nothing more than to play hockey. His agent, Peter Werner, states, Lucas has been calm and collected. He's a professional and knows what's going on. He could closely follow Dylan Larkin's drawn-out negotiations a year ago, so he knows it can take time. So that was the first report that I saw today on Thursday as we record this. And immediately I was like, that's not what I wanted to hear, but it was in line with what we had heard from Dave Pagnotta just, a week ago when we recorded our last episode regarding these guys' contract situations.
Yeah, week and a half maybe, yeah.
Right. And then about a couple hours later, Dave Pagnotta comes out with his own article stating that they're grinding away at it towards a long-term deal. That it's still not close, which does align with the Ice Hockey Gifts part where they say it's not close, but they're both working hard at a long-term deal with just 13 days to go to training camp. That's not the only thing that was in that article, but that's the Lucas Raymond-centric part. So my question to you, Scotty, is what is your read on this situation? Maybe not so much the Lucas Raymond contract aspect of it, but like even talking about the information that we're getting, the differing information, like what's your read on this situation as we close in on the start of training camp?
Yeah, so I have two main areas of thought here, okay, that I want to highlight on this situation that unfolded Thursday. One is that the actual information in both of these articles is actually not super different. The tone is just different. One of the tones is, hey, they're not super close, but they're working at it. They're going to get something done. It's going to be great. And everything's good. It's just they're not super close right now. And the other one was a little bit more doom and gloom. It was a little bit more like, hey, they're not close and that's not good type of tone. Didn't say that verbatim, obviously, but just two varying tones that relayed very similar information, which I thought was kind of interesting. And then the second point that I want to highlight is something that I talk about on this show all the time. Okay, and that is who benefits from this information going public. You have to ask yourself that with every single piece of news that is broken, from a contract negotiation, from a trade deadline like thing, rumor, right? Every free agency, you name it, okay, there is always intent and a reason why information gets given to a journalist. The teams do not do it on accident. It's not whoopsie daisy, I tripped and fell and accidentally called a journalist and gave him information about something that's going on. Now, obviously, stuff leaks. There's stuff like that happens. There could be cracks within a front office, right? But especially with what we know about the Detroit Red Wings in the Steve Yzerman era, is that is a tight ship that does not let information out very often. So, my interpretation of this situation is that someone that maybe is a little bit more in tune with Raymond and his camp and what is in the best interest of Lucas Raymond long term, wrote an article that had a certain tone, and then the Detroit Red Wings organization went, well, we don't want it to be that negative. And then there was a follow-up article a couple hours later, magically, that had a much different tone, even though it was the same information. So that's kind of where, and I don't know anything. I'm very far from an insider. I'm not telling you this as like a report. This is just the type of vibe that I get from this situation is, okay, now every camp involved in this is just going to outlets that they can and wanting to push the narrative that they want to push.
I think you nailed it right on the head, Scotty. I really do. I think this is just narrative ball, trying to put a little bit of pressure on each other's camps to try and make progress. I think we said something very similar last week when we talked about this as well. Like, one of the things you got to consider when you hear this information is who is giving this information out. And I don't know anything about Dave Pagnotta's sources, but one of the vibes I've been getting is a lot of the sources he tends to get seems like it's more agent. What's the word I'm looking for? Agent oriented. Thank you. Agent oriented. So I mean, I agree with you. I think this is just a little bit of narrative ball. And to add on to that, I saw the first report, and I tweeted it out. I was like, that's not what I want to see. But I'm still not really all that worried. And I am not worried because I find it really hard to believe that Steve Yzerman is going to allow his, not just one, but two of his biggest RFAs go into the season without a contract. I could see this going up to like towards the end of preseason, like they might not be at training camp because he does drive a hard bargain with his RFAs, and they're going to want big pay raises, I'm sure, especially Lucas Raymond, who we think is going to get the long-term deal of the two of them, if not both. So I think that this could go on longer, but I'm still, even though it's September 5th and we're just a little over a month out from the start of the NHL season, I find it hard to believe that Steve Yzerman is going to put the screws to him so hard that they're not going to start the season with the Detroit Red Wings and hurt this roster. I find that hard to believe. So really all this is to me is, as you put it, just, controlling the narrative around them and try to put a little bit of pressure on each other. That's all it is. Also, to note, Lucas Raymond and Moritz Seider are currently together in Mannheim, Germany, practicing with one of the Mannheim hockey team. Yeah. So they're together. I'm sure that the communication is very good. I'm just not frazzled at all. The other thing of note in Dave Pagnotta's article is one that he still expects the Jonathan Berggren contract to be signed just prior to training camp. This is the second time he's reported that it's basically done. It just needs to be signed, which is good to know. Again, it's not a super impactful contract, but he is an RFA that needs a new deal, so I'll be very happy to get him signed and under contract and into training camp. And he also says that they're working with Moritz Seider as well, but he doesn't. That's all he said about Moritz Seider in the last 2 weeks, because last week's Dave Pagnotta article, again, back then, was the same thing. It was all about Lucas Raymond, and then, yeah, they're working with Moritz Seider. There's been no update on Seider besides, yeah, they're working at it. Just nothing. And that's the Steve Yzerman special, baby.
Yeah. I know we got to get to a break here, but I just want to repeat and agree with the sentiment. Like, nothing that came out on Thursday has caused me to be even 0.5% more worried about this situation. I have the exact same mindset that I did with the confidence that this will get, resolved here, 2 weeks ago, a month ago, whatever day you pick, as I do today. This changed absolutely, like literally nothing as far as my mindset goes regarding these both, I guess, of these situations.
My main takeaway is that I wish it was already done. Like, I just
Yeah,
wish
no,
it would be here
I wish
already.
it was done in July, right? Like, I wish that this wasn't still looming over everyone's head. I'm not saying it's an ideal situation. I'm just saying I'm not really worried about it. And I think that this is just playing the game. This is just
Right.
what happens during contract negotiations is people try to push their own narrative. And that's journalism, baby.
Heck yeah. It is kind of nice, Scotty, that I guess I could have said hell.
It's all
It
right.
is kind of nice though that we got confirmation that it is a long-term deal that they're working towards. We shouldn't gloss over that. It seems like a no duh, but there was some conversation to be had about one or both of them maybe getting a bridge deal. So it's nice to know that the long-term is the goal here. Get
Yeah.
reassurance of that.
Yeah.
We're going to head to a quick break, and when we return, we'll talk about the Prospect Games roster as that got announced just a couple days ago now, and talk about the players we're most looking forward to seeing. Stay tuned for that in segment 2 of Locked On Red Wings. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Segment 2, Locked On Red Wings podcast. Scotty, the roster for the Prospect Games was announced. The Prospect Games is traditionally called the Prospect Tournament, and unfortunately, it's been dwindling over the years, and this year is going to be just Dallas coming into town, so they've rebranded it as the Prospect Games, and the roster got announced. Scotty, I just want to, have you had a chance to look at this roster and see who's all going to be there?
Yeah, I think there's actually a lot. I mean, this is always a really fun games to watch because it's always kind of the marker for the season starting, right? Like, it's, how last year we did the joke of like, we're almost back, we're so back, we're so back, we're so back, right? Like, every milestone we hit, this is really the first one. Like, this is that this game every summer kind of marks the start of hockey season, and kind of is an indication that the Wings are right around the corner. But as far as the players go, yeah, I actually think there's quite a lot to be excited about. Now, we'll reiterate the point we reiterated last year. It's like it's one set of games. If somebody looks bad on the ice in these games, that does not mean that they're just like terrible, right? Like, there's always a lot of overreactions to these games, so we'll try to limit those. But there's a lot of fun names on here, and I think that is really due, I was going to say in large part, but due solely to the fact that the Wings have one of the better prospect pools in the sport. So yeah, anytime these guys get together and play against other teams, it's always going to be really fun. But yeah, there's a couple of really fun and exciting names on here.
Yeah, I think I'm trying to find the post, but I don't think I'm going to be able to find it because it's so far back.
From the Red Wings, it should only be like a couple.
No. The "We're So Back" posts. We did last year. Yeah, this would be "We're Back." This is the category we're currently in. We're back. As far as names, I mean, there's a couple names that stand out to me that aren't on here. And I think the main reason why is they are professional hockey players now. Sebastian Kosa, Carter Mazur, Marco Kasper, all three who were at last year's camp, as far as I remember at least, are not at this year's camp. I know for sure Kosa was and Mazur was. But with Sebastian Kosa, I remember I was one of those guys who was like watching those games, like starting to freak out a little bit because he didn't look that good. And then he turned it on.
I remember.
But those three guys in particular that we just named, again, like they're professional hockey players in the AHL. Like there's really no merit for them to be at prospect training camp.
Start their their season at their professional team. So yeah.
So I think that those names, that's the reason why that is the case. Now with the guys who are there, obviously the big two names that stand out and should stand out to everyone are Michael brandsegg-nygard and Nate Danielson.
Yeah.
Michael brandsegg-nygard is the most interesting name on this list, not just because he's a first-round pick, but typically guys who are playing the SHL, like Axel Sandin Pellikka, don't come to prospects camp and the prospects tournament because they're preseason, and as we've already seen, MBN has played in preseason games already, and we've seen the highlights, is going on at the same time. So it's really notable that he's coming over, and I don't want to read too far into it, but like you wonder, does that mean he maybe has a chance to make the actual roster, or am I putting too much into it? Because it's just that it's odd because that does not happen. It didn't happen with ASP last year or this year.
Yeah, no, I think that's a great point. I think that's probably the biggest thing that jumps out at me too. I'd be really interested in just how he looks compared to these other guys, but if there's a thought amongst the front office that he is more advanced than maybe they initially thought even on draft night, then yeah, I think there's a potential for him to maybe, I'm not saying like necessarily start here, but like, you know, maybe there's a plan in place to get him over to playing on American ice here sooner than we thought. I think Danielson's really fun too, just because like I kind of expect him to dominate. Like that's really what I want to see. And like I'm not trying to set the expectations too terribly high. But that's kind of what I'm looking for. I want him to be one of the best players on the ice. I think that would be really cool to just see him kind of light up these games. And then, yeah, like on the blue line, you have Shai Buyum, who's, I mean, that's a bigger name in the organization. So that's really cool as well. But yeah, I think all eyes are probably going to be on MBN and Danielson.
Yes. I 100% agree with you there. Another interesting name is Jakub Richlovsky, who's the player they signed out of the Czech League, I believe, that 2-year entry-level contract. I'm really interested to see how he looks as he comes over to Grand Rapids to presumably play with the Griffins and, you know, maybe have an outside chance at making the Red Wings roster too, depending on how advanced he is. So he's going to be a guy that I'm also going to keep a big eye out for. Another player that I'm looking forward to, Scotty, is Kamloops Blazers player and 7th round draft pick by the Red Wings, Emmett Finney. He, I believe, led the team in points last season, where he had 59 points in 62 games and wore the A. And he played 3 games with the Griffins after his season finished. I think he's going back to Kamloops this year, but I'm going to be really interested to see what he can do. Anyone else you got going here?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like I'll be interested just to see the goalie trio. Obviously, none of them are like huge names in terms, like everyone kind of just knows of like the big two of Augustine and Kosa. So I'm kind of interested to see if we can have another goalie, maybe make a name for themselves or kind of have a good camp. That would be a cool thing to have just in the pipeline and have kind of in the back of your head there. And then it's kind of, again, like it's kind of basic and whatnot. But I do think Buyum is going to be fun because there's a chance that he's one of the defenders on this team that gets some of the most minutes, that there's a chance that he's kind of leaned on a lot, which would be really cool to see those 3 big names out there all at the same time getting minutes together. I think would be really fun for the fan base.
Yeah, and I think another one to keep an eye on too is 3rd round pick from this year, Andrei Becher, out of Czech. He had 96 points in 58 games this last year with the Prince George Cougars, and he is one of the more exciting forwards Red Wings drafted in the first few rounds of this draft. So there's a couple of guys. I think another notable thing too, Scotty, when mentioning the prospects is that outside of Shai Boom, I think all of the rest of them are camp invites. They're all
Yeah.
unrestricted free agents. So it feels like, and I'm not sure if this is like less than normal, but it feels like there's a lot fewer prospects at this year's draft and more like camp invites, free agent guys, Grand Rapids guys, rather than like actual tried and true drafted by the Red Wings prospects, which I think is really interesting comparatively to like what we've had the last few years.
Yeah, for sure. I think that part of that is probably just trying to identify some organizational depth, right?
Yeah.
Like that's something we talk about all the time, and it's something that Yzerman has made like very clear he is trying to address and wants to make happen. Wants this organization to be as deep as possible. So for games like this tournament, whatever it's going to be called this year, that's what teams that want to address depth do. They throw a lot of darts at a board and see what sticks.
Absolutely. We're going to head to another quick break. And when we return, we're going to finish up with a How Do You Feel About It Friday. So stay tuned for that in segment 3 of Locked On Red Wings. Got to talk to you guys today about Game Time. Game Time has a new feature called Game Time Picks that makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only incredible deals on great seats so you don't have to waste time searching through thousands of tickets. And by using curation, it will make finding and saving more on sports, concerts, comedy, theater, and so much more even easier using those Game Time Picks. There's an all-in pricing feature that you can toggle on your screen that shows the total upfront with the fees, so nothing surprises you at checkout. Get a panoramic view from your seat before you buy with those patented seat views, and Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference with the lowest price guarantee. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? Game Time. Segment 3, Locked On Red Wings podcast. Nice. He's got the buffs out. Scotty, for the first time, I don't know.
It's about $200 cheaper than buffs.
So for the first time in a long time, we're going to do a How Do You Feel About It Friday, which is a pretty good indication of where we're at in the offseason, I feel. Scotty, how do you feel about the NFL season starting?
I'm pumped, man. I'm really pumped. Honestly, so how do I word this? From a league viewership perspective, I am much more excited about college football being back, which obviously it has been back for a couple weeks now, than I am the NFL. However, from a Detroit Lions and then further down in my priority list, fantasy football perspective, I am unbelievably excited for the NFL season to come back. Does that make sense? So like, I love the NFL, obviously love football. But like I'll watch, some G5, like two schools most people don't care about up on my laptop at, 11 p.m. on Saturday and watch college football any way I can. The NFL, like I'm not buying like the ticket so I can watch every single like out of market game or whatever it is. But I am, keeping an eye on Red Zone as we all should, watching the Lions, obviously every snap. And following my fantasy team very closely. So that's kind of like where I fall. I'm really pumped. I'm pumped for this game. It starts in a couple hours in our time. This Chiefs-Ravens game should be a doozy.
Yeah, I mean, one thing that I'm excited for that I have never done before is I've never done fantasy football, and this is my first year ever doing it. So
nice.
I'm kind of excited to be horrible at it. But I got a pretty solid quarterback, so I'm excited.
Who do you have?
Jalen Hurts.
Oh yeah, he's one of those guys where he's incredible fantasy QB, right? Like people argue all the time about how good he is. Like if you were an NFL GM and like he was your quarterback, how good is he? People argue about that all the time. But like fantasy wise, you can so that's a set it and forget it. You don't got to worry much about that. He's darn good.
Yes, sir. Scotty, on you. What do you got? What do you got for me?
Well, I mean, now I want to ask, how do you feel about your fantasy football team as a whole? I know we just kind of talked about it there, but like, how are you feeling? How are the vibes? Well, first off, how many teams in the league?
10.
Okay, and it's just standard redraft, just
It's my first year doing it, so
I'm assuming
I'm pretty sure there was
we're
no
gonna
keepers.
assume that's a yes. So 10 teams. Okay. So how are you feeling? What are vibes like post draft?
Pretty solid. I mean, with 10 teams, everyone kind of has a pretty good roster.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty happy with me. I got Hurts. I got Bijan Robinson.
Nice.
Also,
Always,
so
good.
Pretty pumped. I got whose defense do I got? Dallas's defense.
Okay. I don't care about your defense. I do want to know what pick you had though. What pick did you have?
5th, I think.
And you took Bijan?
Bijan first, yes.
Yeah, okay. Nice. Yeah, that's solid value. That's good.
Thanks. Appreciate it.
Yeah. No, it's a nice core. It's a nice core. You can do some things with that for sure.
But you don't care about the defense.
No, I don't.
I don't know how this works.
You will cut them. You will have 4 to 6 different defenses over the course of the season. That defense is. Who's your kicker though? That's the real question.
Jake Moody.
Okay, not bad. Obviously, Justin Tucker's a league winner, but Moody's solid.
I was eyeing him, and then he got taken about 3 picks before me.
So yeah, Justin Tucker gets like it's so funny. Like he'll get drafted in like the 10th round, and every other kicker gets taken in the 20th or the 15th, or however many rounds you have in your league. Like it's just so funny how much earlier he gets taken than literally every other kicker. Dallas's kicker is pretty good too. But
how do you feel about this the lack of Red Wings news we've had in the last like month and a half? I want to know you as a fan and you as a content producer. How are your feelings on that?
Stressed as a occupation, as a job, stressed. It's certainly yeah, man. It would obviously help us. It would benefit us greatly if there's a little bit more news out there. But I don't know. I feel like we've done a pretty good job of still. Maybe we haven't. Maybe someone's going to be in the replies like, "You guys' shows have been awful for a month." But like, I feel like we've done a decent job of still finding, like active stuff to talk about on an episode to episode basis. But yeah, obviously, like rooting for radio a little bit there from a fan perspective. I mean, to be completely honest with you, I have so much focus on the Tigers still for the last month of the season. But at the same time, even the Red Wings, half of my brain is like, well, I just want them to be playing hockey again. Like if it's not a Sider or Raymond piece of news anyways, then I want to watch them play hockey again. I'm so pumped for the Wings to be back. I'm really, really excited for this year. And so more so than the lack of news, I'm kind of just like, oh my goodness, can we just, get to, I don't wish time away ever, but like, can we just get to the Detroit Red Wings playing hockey again?
Right. I'm right there with you, man. As a content producer, it's like, if you root for the radio, right? And but I'm a fan first, and the fan side of me, I need the dopamine hit, man. Like I'm hitting, for the last month and a half, I've been hitting refresh on Twitter, hoping to see the news break, or I have the push notifications on for the Red Wings on Twitter as well.
Same.
And every time I get,
like, here's today's trivia. It's like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna scream.
I do not care.
I'm gonna scream. I don't care about trivia.
I know admin is just doing admin's job, but
no, I know.
If I get one more push notification.
Obviously, no disrespect to that. I really like the Wings social media team. Does a great job, but
they do. And I know it's not their fault the deals aren't done.
Right,
but I get my hopes up.
Negotiating with Raymond's agent currently.
I get my hopes up a little bit every time I see Detroit Red Wings come across my home screen. I'm like, is this it? Because you know that's not leaking anywhere first.
Yeah, that's how the Wings roll too. It'll be out there.
They announced their own Tarasenko signing. Nobody had that.
Yeah.
It's kind of a big deal.
He's on too still.
Me too.
I always do, but yeah. Soon.
Yeah, not soon enough, brother. Not soon enough.
You're telling me.
Although, speaking of soon, we'll be back to 5 days a week very soon as well. We have one more week at 3, and then the week of the 16th, which I believe is the week training camp begins in full. We will be back at 5 days a week. Thankfully, once training camp starts, we'll have like real updates for you guys, real content. So get ready for that. Back to 5 days a week in the second half of September. So stay tuned.
Yeah.
Scotty?
Yeah, no, that'll be cool. And then the end of the month, Brian convinced a girl to like him, so that's gonna be couple days of just me, maybe. I don't know. We'll figure it out. It'll be a fun time.
I'm definitely I just pay her. She doesn't actually like me.
It's like those stories you hear about like kids' parents paying people to like be their friend.
Be their friend.
Yeah,
That's
just,
kind of
like,
what I was going for there.
Under the table, she's just like making bank just yeah.
Every time she comes over to my parents for like dinner, and I'm just sliding her a 20 under the table. Like, thanks, babe.
Thank you
Appreciate
for putting
it.
up with this. Thank you so much.
No, I'm
That'll
not.
be
I don't
fun,
have the kind of money.
That'll be a fun little weekend.
It will be. Scotty, final thoughts?
We ball.
We ball. We'll be back with a new episode on Monday, so stay tuned for that. Same time,
Can I go on the
same
honeymoon?
place. Absolutely not. That's a
I'm
hard
gonna
no.
be at the wedding. I just figured you could fit me in a big suitcase or something.
Are you helping pay for the honeymoon?
No.
Well, then absolutely. It would have been a maybe if you were offering to pay for the honeymoon.
No, dude, I'm like your carry-on. I just
What am I going to sneak you into a suitcase? You're like 7 foot tall and your head is the size of a boulder.
We'll get a suitcase. Just like post wedding, I'll still be in like my suit and everything. It'll be fine. I'll just get in a suitcase and I'll meet you guys there, and you pay for everything, and it's good.
I see very little benefit in this for me.
Wow, that's hurtful.
Yeah.
Spending
Okay.
time with me. We ball.